Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Gary Diazy. I'm excited to be here. Big thanks to Bright Talk for inviting me out to chat with you guys today about content marketing. I'm going to ask that I'm going to have my Twitter handle on every slide, so any questions that you guys have, please feel free to reach out, tweet me during or after the presentation. I'll be sure to follow up with all you guys. I work at SmartBear Software. At SmartBear, we have 15 or so software quality tools which we market to software developers, testers, and IT and operations folks. We have over 4 million users worldwide and 25,000 plus enterprise organizations of all shapes and sizes. Just a little bit about myself. I have mostly a B2B digital marketing demand generation experience. In my current role at SmartBear, I manage our demand generation team and also the corporate brand. Previously, I held a role here at SmartBear, heading up demand generation for one of our 4 core markets. And for my first 2 years here, ran marketing operations, automation, and lead nurturing. Prior to coming to SmartBear, my primary background is also in demand generation. We got a lot to cover here today, so I'm going to speed ahead. Quick plug for my blog, customerjourneymarketer.com, which I launched about 5 weeks ago. Check it out. I write a lot of it mostly about aligning digital marketing with the customer journey and content and digital marketing in general. So some very quick high-level content stats for SmartBear from Q2 2016. We had almost 200,000 visits to our resource section, which my colleague Dan launched in Q4 of last year. Over almost 505,000 visits to our blog, and just under 40,000 gated content downloads for things like ebooks and webinars, which was a record. We produced 9 ebooks in that quarter, 9 prospect webinars, 44 blog posts, 4 infographics, and that's not including customer-facing materials, videos, other web articles. So we're producing lots and lots of content to fuel our digital marketing machine here at SmartBear. What is content marketing? So I assume that most of us on the call today, you guys are familiar with what content marketing is. So for those that aren't, I've bolded some of the more important words here, I think, in the definition. One definition that I actually like a little bit better came from Robert Rose, the Chief Strategy Officer at CMI, which says, traditional marketing and advertising is telling the world you're a rock star, whereas content marketing is showing the world that you are one. And I think that's really cool and really sums it up well. Instead of a one-way communication like it was traditional marketing, we're using our content to show our customers how awesome we are. So content is the fuel of all of our digital marketing engines. Everything that we're doing is ultimately driven by content in a lot of ways, but not everyone gets the same mileage out of it. So in a report from CMI, Content Marketing Institute this year, it found that while 88% of B2B companies are doing content marketing, only 30% of them say they are effective. And a stat from HubSpot here, only 41% of marketers say that content marketing has a positive ROI. And yet, B2B marketers are increasing spend on content marketing. On average, 28%. Most marketers spend about 28% of their marketing budget on content marketing. And in the next 12 months or so, we're looking to increase more. 51% of B2B marketers are going to be increasing their spend on content marketing coming up. Even those that are least effective at content marketing are also looking to increase their spend. And yet, 70% are not being effective, which means that's a lot of ROI down the drain, a lot of dollars being spent that aren't impacting the bottom line for the business. So we're creating tons of content. It's crazy. This one infographic here, if you've seen this before, is pretty cool. In 60 seconds, this is how much content is being created every single day online, right? We have 1,500 blog posts every minute, 600 different new YouTube videos being uploaded. In a day, Almost 140,000 new websites are going live, 2 million blog posts are written, and 864,000 hours of videos uploaded. So it's getting harder and harder to capture our customers' attention and stand out, and it's gotten infinitely more competitive than it was even a few years ago, and it continues to do so. So this is one of the big challenges, is why so many content marketers are struggling now because of the competition. The fact of the matter is that everyone fails at content marketing. Some just more often than others. And the idea is to fail less and less often than others. So, or as our CMO Brian Semple likes to say, suck a little less each week. But some more positive ways to look at failure. Thomas Edison famously said on inventing the light bulb, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Right? And Nelson Mandela, "I never lose, I either win or learn." So we're not going to have time for 10,000 today, but today I'll share with you guys a bunch of ways that I found that don't work for content marketing and some lessons learned on what does. So the 7 P's of the content marketing life cycle. There are many different models for content processes out there. You may be using one already. This is my version. And for the format of today's session, I'm going to walk through each step of this cycle and point out some ways where we can make some mistakes and some ways we can be more effective. Starting with personas and customers, because in content marketing and everything digital marketing, everything needs to revolve around our customers. So one of the biggest mistakes we can make is taking an inside-out approach by being more content-centric than audience-centric. So what this means is that we want to talk about what we want to talk about and not what our customers want to hear. And in this diagram here, which Neil Patel posted in a blog, this shows a direct correlation to the size of the audience you reached. The more audience-centric you are versus content-centric, talking about what we want to talk about. On the other hand, again, it's what your audience wants to hear about, but not any just Joe Schmo. We want to cast a wide net at the top of the funnel, sure, but we need to attract a qualified audience that might actually buy down the road. We don't want to cast the net too wide. So you see here, this is an extreme, exaggerated example, the definitive guide to getting rich, marrying your soulmate, and living a long, happy life, right? But the concept is a common mistake that marketers could make. When we try to cast too wide of a net, we're attracting an unqualified audience that's not going to end up ever becoming a customer. So instead, the best approach is one in which that typically involves what I'm calling here finding triple threat topics. So a real grand slam home run content topic finds common ground between the customer interests, customer needs, and business objectives and value props, our own marketing agenda. So for example, fresh on top of my mind, I went to flip my funnel last week here in Boston. Say you're a predictive analytics vendor, marketing marketers. You know your audience is interested in ABM and for a need to do a better job identifying target accounts. You know your solution can solve those needs. So a topic on finding better target accounts for ABM using predictive, right? That's a grand slam. Everybody wins. Or even leaving predictive out of the main central focus and list 3 ways to improve account targeting with ABM, one of which being predictive. If you can't thread the needle with all 3, the second best option you can do is at least cover 2 of those bases. Another common mistake is that your content sells more than it educates. No one wants to sit here and listen to you talking about how great your product is all day. Consumers today are conditioned to tune us out. We see, on average, 3,000 to 20,000 brand messages a day. We tune it all out. So the best way to get customers' attention and engage them is to help them and provide them value through educating them. When my colleague Dan launched our new resource library last year, he was very adamant about calling it a learning center. As you can see right here, you can see right in the URL and in the header, our users, our customers, we're telling our customers and Google that this is all about education. Another quick example, one of the most popular series we've had is this 101 series over time. And these are ebooks like here, REST 101. You can already see with the 101 phrase, right? You're already thinking education, right? It's associated with school, and also a beginner's guide, where it's obviously education, but also someone who's an expert might want to brush up once in a while too as well. So educating and not selling. And then you have what I call pulling a Trojan horse. So you say, okay, we're going to educate, and you package it all up, and it's educational content on the outside, and then a customer goes and downloads it, they fill out the form, they get inside, and all of a sudden, I'm duped again. They're selling the product and service. And this might not show up in your metrics, but you've just jeopardized your customer's trust. This can be just as bad as an unsubscribe, because the next time they see some of your content and go to engage with you, if they don't trust you, they're not going to engage with you again. Another mistake then is your content doesn't answer your customers' questions. 27% of search queries on Google are questions. In the last year, we had 70% growth in how-to searches on YouTube as well. And 72% of buyers turn to Google and what they're calling the awareness stage of the customer journey at the top, and then return to it in research. So you need to be answering your customers' questions and finding out what are those questions that you need to answer. So some of our most effective and best performing content of all time have been those that have done a really good job of finding out what are the important questions our customers are asking and answering them with content. And those are the ones that tend to rank high in Google as well. There's a lot of ways you can find out, what are the questions your customers are asking. Reddit, for example, you can go and find a relevant subreddit for your customers and sort by popularity, sort by what's hot now, what's most popular in the last 30 days, 60 days. That's a great way. Just take a look at the different questions and discussions on Reddit. SERP Stats pretty cool. You can enter a keyword phrase, and it'll show you the types of questions that people are searching related to those keywords. Lots of tools for this, but whatever you have to do, talk to sales, talk to customer-facing people, talk to customers, but find those questions that are being asked by your customers and then go and answer them in your content. So in order to educate your customers, you need to understand them first, right? So we need to understand them on an individual level and an organizational level. And I'm not going to dive into every one of these, but really peeling back the onion and getting inside your customers' heads, right? What are the priorities and concerns? What keeps them up at night? What are the common objections we may run into downstream in the customer journey that your customer might have? How, where, and when do they prefer to consume content? I interviewed 22 SmartBear customers and surveyed 1,300 more in a brand research project I ran recently. And I remember thinking to myself, I probably learned just as much valuable info about my customers for content and demand gen than I did for the brand. So really need to understand our customer personas and the organizations they're in. Another one of my favorite ways to think about in terms of understanding customers is how do they solve the problem before they come to you, right? Are they using a high-end competitor versus a low-end competitor, for example? If a high-end competitor is way more expensive and robust, or a low-end is too cheap or not advanced enough, it might be harder to convert these guys downstream, and you may even want to avoid attracting them. That's just one example, but how your customers solve the problem before coming to you really changes how they search, the questions that you'll need to answer for them, the obstacles you need to help them overcome, and again, the difficulty in converting them. And another one of my favorites for understanding customers is identifying and capitalizing on buying triggers. And buying triggers are the term I use for describing what are those common events that set customers off in search of a solution. So a quick analogy here from my days as a creative writing minor in college. So in the 3-act structure in film, an inciting incident is a turning point event that happens early in the first act that usually sets a story in motion and ultimately sets a protagonist off in their quest to go solve the problem, right? The inciting incident is the buying trigger for your customers. So figuring out what those events are, they're setting them off on their journey is valuable information. These are the most engaged, fast track to purchase customers you're going to find, and the better you can understand these, the better you can lead them into your, to your door with content. For us, maybe an e-commerce customer site crashed and cost them a ton of money, and they're looking for a solution there, or maybe they just got audited and weren't prepared. Whatever those buying triggers are, identify them, capitalize on them with your content. On to planning and strategy, and the theme here is no random acts of content. So in the CMI report, one of the biggest things that separated the most effective content marketers from the least effective were those that had a documented plan and strategy. And because if not, right, you're throwing everything at the wall and hoping everything sticks. And this leads to wasting resources, and you're not focusing on what will really move the needle. Also, in terms of strategy, a big mistake is your content strategy isn't aligned with the customer journey. So 90% of the customer or the buyer's journey is self-directed. This is a stat from Forrester. And on average, customers consume at least 11.4 pieces of content before making a B2B purchase. So we rely on content to help customers navigate further on their journey for up to 90% of the way. So we need content to answer the right questions and help them overcome barriers and obstacles for us so that they can continue a successful journey. And the challenge is that those questions and the obstacles change over time as customers pass through different stages of the customer journey. And this is why we use customer journey stages models. Here's our customer journey stages model, which I created for SmartBear, which combines various elements from different models. But there's a lot of them out there. We use this to understand what the objectives are at each stage of the journey. And we've actually aligned not only our content strategies with this model at SmartBear, but our entire marketing organization, which I'll go into during this presentation. But really understanding what we need to accomplish and what the objectives are for both customers and as marketers at every stage. So naturally, when you read that model, you'll read it from top to bottom in order, but a big common misconception I see is that you think customer journeys are linear. And so you'll sit there and you say, okay, so we have this persona, and first they'll get this content, then they'll get that content, next they'll get this research stage content. This does not work. That is not the way that it works. So don't sit down and try to map the customer journey out for your customer. Don't try to play God, right? Customers they are in control of their own journeys. They're going to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, in the order in which they want to do it. We have no control over their journeys. We can just influence it. So don't try to map it out and don't think linearly. Instead, just focus on answering your customers' questions at each stage. So these are some of the high-level questions that we look to answer for our customers at each stage of the funnel. But of course, there are also going to be specific questions to answer as well. And make sure every piece of content is a door, a bridge, and a ladder, and I'll explain what that means now. First, you need to make sure that customers can find you and enter the funnel at every stage. And then when they do find you, you have bridges to more relevant content on that same stage so they can continue engaging and answering more questions that they have at that stage, and also ladders so that they can advance to later stages in the journey. Onto the content planning process. So one of the big mistakes here is you didn't define business objectives and goals. Right, no surprises there. So one thing I like to do here usually is inform this with metrics. So looking back on the last few months and quarters, what are the metrics, what are the key KPIs that we might need to focus on really improving at different stages of the customer journey in the next 30, 60, 90 days? And from there, we're setting our objectives. Now, objectives typically will run a little bit longer than 30, 60, 90 days, usually up to a year, 6 months to a year, because in terms of effectiveness, you need to have them running longer in order for you to truly get there. An objective, for example, might be taking market share from a competitor, establishing yourself as a leading authority on the subject, reaching a new market segment or audience, or educating the market to create demand for a new solution. Whatever it is, you're setting your objectives that you're going to focus on accomplishing with your content marketing. Next, we have themes. Now, this is optional, but it's something that I've always found very helpful. These are our overarching themes, our buckets of content that we're going to be producing over the next it could run 1 month, 12 months. Typically, I prefer around 90 days or so. Also, I prefer not to do more than 3 or 4 of these at a time. And these are super helpful in a lot of ways, but they really help you focus your resource on the needle movers. It helps you build authority on the topic and SEO ranking by creating lots of content on all the different subjects surrounding a certain topic. And it really helps you stay on track so that you're not creating lots of content topics or that are not focused on your goals. On to research. And this is pretty subjective. Research can really happen in any part of this process, and a lot of times it's actually happening all the way throughout and in between. But not taking time to put in your research is a huge way your content's going to fail. So as we talked about, your customer research, understanding their problems, their personas, and their conversion obstacles, what's getting in the way of them closing downstream, what questions they're asking, competitive, right? So looking at your competitors and seeing how their messaging differs to yours, how you're matching up strengths, weaknesses wise, but what topics are they talking about in their content? Should we be talking about something similar that they are? Should we be talking about something differently that we're already talking about to differentiate ourselves from them? Also with competitive research, we have keyword research, right? So we use SEMrush for this mainly, and we want to be looking at how are we ranking competitively? What words are we currently ranking for? What do our competitors rank on? And where are the opportunities for us to rank for new keywords and gain traction against the words our competitors are ranking for? And of course, looking for trends in the marketplace. So really putting in time to do your research is always worth it. You're going to end up with much smarter content. Next, another mistake we can make is you create new content without understanding what you already have. And that's where a content audit comes in. So with a content audit, we're identifying opportunities and gaps, right? We're looking at places in the customer journey where we need to fill gaps with our content. And these are a bunch of different considerations. Also, during a content audit, I'm not going to hit on all of them here, but things like not only just numbers of assets per stage, but performance of assets, right? You could have 150 articles at the education stage, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're driving enough traffic for you. You're looking at where we have our content. Are they in the right places? Our distribution, have we done enough with distribution for our content? Are there opportunities to optimize, to enhance, and to repurpose? And again, on keyword research. So once we've identified our gaps and our opportunities through our content audit, we're on to the last stage here, which is topics, formats, timeline, budget, and resources. We spoke on topics briefly earlier, and topics, again, that's really the most important one here. But also with resources and formats. So in this example here from Curata, the content marketing pyramid, they use this, they assign point values to represent the amount of effort it takes to produce a different type of content, ranging everywhere from 500 for an ebook to something like social media post curated content for 1 point at the bottom there. Now, this is really important because when we're going to plan our content, right, you don't want to roll the dice here, right? The topics that you're choosing, if you miss the mark on too many of these 500, 250, and 100 point value topics, that really adds up, and that has a big impact, right? So instead, we want to experiment down here. Experiment down here and make sure that the things that we're spending our time, budget, and resources on are really tried and true topics that we're truly confident in. On to production and design. The theme here is quality over quantity. So earlier this year in May, I was lucky enough to take a vacation out to Santorini in Greece. I'm not sure if any of you have ever been there, but if not, I would highly recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful, and I still think about it a lot to this day, so probably explains why I'm going to use this as an analogy right now. So there's Santorini down there, and here in the Sea of Google, right, Santorini is going to represent quality content, right? It's a really high quality place. Now, creating not quality content is kind of like blowing up an inner tube and throwing it into the sea and hoping it becomes an island, right? So Google cares about quality. It is not wanting for quantity. If you remember how many pieces of content are being cast into Google every single day. So if you want your content to stay on the map and to show up, then and be high ranking, then it needs to be high quality. Otherwise, you're just casting off an inner tube into the sea. So in order to be quality, you need to deliver a lot of value in your content. And one of the ways we deliver value is through long-form content. So from the SERP IQ stat, on average, the ranking 1 and 2 position ranking content in Google have 2,400 words or more. Some more data here from Curata. Curata also found that long-form content on average got 3 times as many shares, 8 times page views, leads generated, and pipeline generated as well. So I remember, back when I was a young digital marketing Padawan, being taught that, just when you have a topic, a blog topic, write a few hundred words, and then split the rest up into a series so you have, blog content for the next week or so. And now, it's really a much better approach to try to make every post that you make a complete guide on that subject. Not focusing enough on titles. So David Ogilvy famously said, on average, 5 times as many people read the headlines as they read the body copy. I will go as far to say that the title is just as important as the body copy or the actual content itself. You could make the best content you've ever created in the world, and if you miss in the title, it could fail. So title is crucially important. So it might be hard to read the stat from CoSchedule here, but traffic could vary up to 500% because of your headline, right? So with 20,000 messages we're engaging with, we're flying by every single day, titles are the way that we stand out. So a few title tips. Google displays 50 to 60 characters of title. So one tip I've picked up is that if you keep titles under 55 characters, 95% of them will display properly. Otherwise, if they're too long, they're going to run off, and you're not going to be able to see the title. A couple tools for this. There's Co-Schedule Headline tool, which also gives you some other analysis to grade your title, and Yoast, which is a WordPress plugin, which I use. Some other title tips. I'm not going to go through all of these, but it's amazing how much the tried and true title tips work. If you look at all of our all-time most popular blog content, in our top performing content, probably 65–70% of them have numbers in the content. They're lists. They're how-to articles. So these things really work. Having emotional words and being surprising is an effective strategy. Making strong statements to stand out is great. However, you need to make sure that those statements are A, true, and B, aligned with the content. If they don't align with the content, customers are going to bounce, Google's going to see it, and you're going to get knocked. Be clear and specific. Don't be vague. And scream value as much as you absolutely can. You see, for example, you see HubSpot always publishes those blog posts. It's like 15 templates for content planning or something like that. All those lists of templates that they give away for free. That is huge value, right? So any ways that you can demonstrate value in the title. Your content isn't visually engaging, right? In order to stand out now and catch customers' attention, you need to be visual, right? So visual content is more than 40 times more likely to get shared in social. And content with relevant images gets 94% more views than content without. A lot of companies are also using interactive content for this. This is an example here on the right of a interactive quiz that our co-op Rima actually created this week. Another example of educating. But you really need to be visual, and it's super important both inside the content as you're going through a blog post, whatever it is that you're reading, having visuals, but also when you're promoting content. So as a quick example here, our paid advertising manager, PJ, or as we like to call him, PPCJ, has been running a bunch of experiments where, you know how on LinkedIn when you go to share something, you drop the URL in and the metadata pops up, and it looks something like this on the left, right? He's been experimenting a lot with deleting that and replacing it with a larger image when he's promoting our content, so that to really just help stand out on customers' news feeds. And in this example, he almost doubled the click-through rate with that visual format on the right. Now, I know that this is not a completely true A/B test because there's multiple variables at play here, but maybe we can call it an A/B trend because we keep testing this over and over again and trying it, and we keep seeing much better results by doing this. But this is a testament to the need to stand out with visuals. So take the time to make your content visually appealing. Your content isn't easily consumable. So a lot of the time now, people will either save or skim content, right? They'll bookmark it, maybe come back to it later, probably not, or they'll skim it more frequently. So in order to skim it, somebody's going to come in, they're going to say, oh, that's a nice headline, here's an interesting stat, conceptual diagram I'll check out, a cool quote, oh, there's a bulleted list and 3 numbered steps to get started, done, share it, and I'm out, right? Less than a minute. So we need to make sure that our content is legible, we have good structure, things are in bite-sized chunks, and using these types of bulleted lists and things like that, section headers, to help our customers easily skim content. If we're not doing this, then we're going to lose them. They're out of here. It's going to be too hard to read, and they're gone. Mobile. Of course, what's a conversation about content without talking about mobile optimization? So CMS reported in a recent study that 57% of users say that they won't recommend a business with a poorly designed mobile site. And this comes down to trust. Nowadays, if your site isn't mobile optimized, customers just don't trust you, and they're just not going to engage with you. So when you're designing your content on desktop, you have to constantly remind yourself that a large percentage of the people viewing it are going to be looking at it on a teeny tiny screen, and people don't have the time or patience to sit there squinting. Speaking of which, if your website looks like the Ringwood Public Library here, you're in big trouble, right? Customers are not going to trust you. You see this site, and you're like, wow, this looks sketchy. I'm out of here. I'm going to go find the next person who actually looks legit. So making sure your site looks modern and up to date, very important. And your content isn't shareable. This is a really interesting one. So by this, yes, it's important that you have social sharing buttons and capabilities in the right places, but also it's content that people want to share, right? So this study done by UCLA in 2013 found that they did a study and they found that there's 5 main motivations for why people share content. One was to bring valuable, entertaining content to others. 2, to define ourselves to others, which I'm going to speak to real quick because that's a really interesting one, right? So people are sharing content because they want to give other people a better sense of who they are and what they care about, right? So the better you can understand your customers, the more you can create the content that you know that they'll want to share to represent who they are. The 5th one on this list is to get the word out about causes or brands. So if your customers love your content and therefore love your brand, you're going to be much more successful getting more shares from them over time. And again, that goes back to consistently delivering them quality. Publishing and promotion. You don't focus enough on SEO. So, and by SEO, I don't mean keyword stuffing, because we know that doesn't work anymore. Google will figure that out, and you'll get knocked for that. But SEO and content really go hand in hand, and one can't really survive without the other. You need them both. So on the right here is a chart that shows some of Google's components of Google's ranking algorithm. Right? We still need technical SEO, on-site SEO, things like H1s, title tags, anchor texts, off-page SEO as well, and then things like your site architecture, hierarchy, and how your content is organized can really impact how Google crawls your site and recognizes your domain as an authority. So if you're not paying enough time and attention to SEO, it's really important that you start doing that more. Content is inconsistent. So inconsistent, in terms of cadence. So this is from HubSpot. A study found that the highest traffic driving blogs post on average 16 times per month. And what we're doing here is we're telling our users with our cadence that they can depend on us as a trusted source of content. And it's telling Google the same thing. And typically, as is the case, what is important to customers is important to Google. So a steady cadence of content, which again takes planning, and cross-channel messaging, we have to be consistent, and our brand, right? So everything from fonts, colors, voice and tone, visual guidelines. Content in many ways is one of the leading drivers of B2B brands, right? Just look at HubSpot, for example, right? A hugely, widely known, strong brand, which was created largely through their content marketing. So we need to be consistent with that so your customers and fans start recognizing your brand. As much as I love the movie, this is not true when it comes to content. If you build it, they will come from Field of Dreams. A big myth in content marketing. If you publish content, your audience is not going to automatically show up to read it. So you need to focus more on distribution. Part of that entails aligning our distribution strategy with the customer journey. So yes, content strategy is aligned with it. Now we need to go align all of our other channels, and I'll show some examples of that in just a minute. Another big mistake is you don't leverage all the channels at your disposal, and also you don't leverage all the data at your disposal. And both of these are examples where you can get much more targeted with your distribution. So when you go and publish new content, right, you're going to do your typical 1 post on Facebook, 1 post on LinkedIn, 3 to 6 posts in the first week on Twitter, but it really can pay off to go the extra mile and go seek out communities and places that are where you're going to find target audiences that are going to be more interested in this specific topic, right? Finding LinkedIn groups, Google Plus circles, Reddit, subreddits, wherever it is, go find the targeted groups that are most interested in this particular topic, and that will really pay off. And in terms of data, we have behavioral data, implicit, and then we have demographic and firmographic data, which is explicit, usually collected through a form or a survey or a social profile. But there's tons of opportunities to leverage this for targeting, and if you're not doing that, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to reach a more engaged audience and have a much bigger impact. And last one, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to show a bunch of examples of all of these different last things I've gone through coming together. Last one here is understanding search intent and user intent. So there's 4 different types of intent. You have navigational, informational, which means they're really just looking for educational content. Then commercial, so now they're looking to check out an actual solution or product, and then transactional, I'm ready to buy, right? And those are dramatically different, and Google will look at that to determine what the user is looking for when they chooses what content to serve up. So a quick example of that, PPCJ ran this one. So he typically in PPC search, we're looking to push trial. We have a free trial model, but for search terms like how-to, tutorial, and guide relating to our products, instead of serving up a free trial, right, these guys are looking for information. Those are not commercial investigation search intent phrases, right? So he serves up an ebook instead. And then again, you see an example here of showing value up front, right? 50+ pages of step-by-step tutorials, right? So this person's not looking for a trial now. They're looking for educational content, and that's why this performs so well. We've also aligned our web properties and communities with the customer journey, and these are the sweet spots, right? So the resource centers, right? They have more content that's not just in education and research, but these are the main sweet spots for education research content. So we're publishing different content in different places on our web properties and communities based on the customer journey. And so when you have an informational search, right, somebody's looking for what is code review or code review best practices, you're going to find our Learn section, which Dan created for us back in Q4 last year. But if you search for code review tools or tool or solution, then you're going to find, through a commercial search, you're going to find our product section. Or a transactional search, you're going to find our product section. And then PJ also uses this data to target ads by what level of the customer journey they might be in. So, for example, if someone's looking at, going to the resources section, right, they're in the education or research stage, instead of a trial, he's going to remarket them with an ebook. And same thing for the product section. If someone visits the product section and hasn't visited the thank you page for the trial, we're going to go after them with a trial. And he'll also alternate in open source as well off of our open source site, both messages to see which one's going to work. And so it's leveraging data to really understand what ads are the right ones to offer, or the right ones to serve up based upon their stage of the customer journey, right? And so we're much more effective when we're able to do this. Another example that PJ does very frequently is using behavioral data based on a topic. So for example, if someone showed interest in a specific content theme such as agile testing or REST testing, then we're going to target them with more content on that topic. On to automated nurture and lead scoring runs much the same way for us, right? So we're utilizing behavioral data here to figure out when somebody converts in content, we're going to continue that experience. And Marketo is what we use for this. We have programmed to figure out what product you're interested in and what stage of the customer journey you are, so we can put you in the right nurture stream and engage you with the right content. So we currently have top of the funnel, and again, this is set up for all 15 of our products. At the top of the funnel, if you come in through an ebook, for example, and this is also all driven by scoring and behavior. You come in there, we have more educational content we're going to serve up for you and nurture you towards a trial or nurture you towards becoming a QL. Or during trial, we have a different experience. And then after a trial, so later in the customer journey where we're focusing on converting you into an opportunity or opportunity to close, the experience is going to change as well, and the content will change as well. So this is all dynamic, and our results are much, much better. And because if you're not doing this and not targeting using your data and just marketing the same way to everybody, you're just losing tons of opportunities to get them the right content. And capitalizing on conversion opportunities. So we use a lot of secondary calls to action. If you're driving a lot of traffic and you don't have an opportunity for them to convert on a form with something relevant, then you're wasting a lot of opportunities. So here's a quick example. We have an article here, REST API testing for beginners, and you have the ebook related to it right there as well, where you can convert. Also, after you download the ebook, on the thank you page there, then you have the opportunity to convert to a trial. And so we do this on as much as we possibly can, and we try to make it a rule for ourselves to always have that next step conversion out there. So we're constantly giving people, we're not shoving it in their face, but we're giving them the opportunity to convert and move down the funnel. We've driven over 5,000 product trials just through email, through secondary call to actions, through our content this year alone. So it's been really, really effective for us. You haven't built a content network is another big mistake. So leveraging not just internal people, but building up customers, external influencers, industry publications. Content marketing is largely relationship building, right? So the more of these guys we can leverage, the more when we go to publish something, they're all on our distribution team. So build up a content network, and a lot of the ways you do this is it's a give and get relationship, right? So we're following, sharing, commenting on each other's blogs, quoting each other, linking to each other, and then eventually as the relationship progresses, we might be cross-blogging or doing joint content. But this is a common mistake, is to not build up a content network to help you distribute your content, and also with these guys, you're also leveraging their networks, right? Big pet peeve of mine is also promoting format over content over topic. I hope I get invited to a webinar today. Said no one ever when somebody's waking up. Nobody wants to get invited to a webinar, right? So you see those people promoting contents like, check out our new webinar this week. It's like, oh yeah, congratulations, you know how to run a webinar. It's the topic, right? And so like on your website, we've been guilty of this as well. When in your library, when people are going to look for content, rarely are they looking for a webinar. In the cases where they are, they're looking for a webinar they heard about that they missed, but most of the time they're looking for a specific topic. Metrics. So I can't dive too deep on this section, but time permitting, but you need to have a clear definition of success. And a lot of the time, one of the big mistakes too is focusing too much on just sales-driven metrics, the bottom line. Content marketing is a lot. It isn't just about the bottom line. Yeah, of course, it's very important for that, and that it ends there. But we need to also be thinking about engaging a wider audience and building up a following and growing a brand relationship. And that is not always going to show up in your conversion metrics. So just a few ways that we measure content performance. A couple examples. Organic visits is one of the best high-level senses of how our content is performing, driving organic traffic. Of course, we need to make sure that content's also converting downstream, which is where we're looking at with net new leads and qualified leads. Engagement metrics are important, right? That's going to help us. Google looks at that as well, and it gives us a sense of. So if our customers are really engaging with our content, Google's going to look at that and see that it's high-quality content. And then for sales and pipeline, I use Opportunities Influence Reporting in Salesforce.com, and some important tips for that. I like to look at both dollar amounts and the number of opportunities, which is important, because if you have one deal that's $1 million or just a huge amount, then next time you run the same thing and maybe you got lucky that first time with that deal size, and it doesn't happen again the same way. I just ran a campaign that I had gotten sort of lucky the last time. So looking at the total number of opportunities is really important. And I also look at the number of downloads of that content and the conversion rate to the opportunities as well. So we're understanding our metrics. Now for repurposing and refining. One of the best ways you can go about this is, so as an analogy, for an eco-friendly car, it's a lot easier to make a car eco-friendly if you design it that way from the start than to take a car that's not eco-friendly and try to make it eco-friendly, right? It's much the same way with content. So if you're designing content, it should be evergreen as much as possible. And will this be relevant 3 months from now, 3 years from now? Evergreen content is defined as SEO content that remains relevant and fresh over time. Some examples of things that aren't evergreen here, but designing topics that are going to keep providing value and getting traffic in the long term. Also, designing content for repurposing, I'd highly recommend outlining your content as much as you can, and you can do some, if you're really planful and strategic about it, one tip is to make all the chapters and subchapters in your outline standalone topics so that they can later be repurposed into standalone content assets. Marketo are absolute kings at this. If you look at this example here, this first chapter they repurposed into a guide which currently ranks #1 for what is lead generation. They also repurposed this into 11 plus more assets all from this one definitive guide that they created. So a really, really smart approach to pack such a larger punch with your content. You can do the same thing with your webinars with an outline ahead of time, and we use webinar transcriptions and transcribe all of our webinars afterwards, turn them into ebooks, and then repurpose the chapters of the ebooks. Also, when you're repurposing webinar slides for SlideShare, it's my belief that if your webinar deck isn't optimized for SlideShare, it probably wasn't optimized for the webinar. So I hope my slides here today have been a good experience for you guys. If not, I'd love to hear your feedback. But optimizing your webinar slides so that they can go on SlideShare as well is a great approach. And I'm out of time here, but really at the core of everything is your team and the process. So it really takes a team. So Ryan Pinkham is our content marketing manager, and he deserves a ton of the credit for a lot of our content marketing successes, but really it's a shared credit of all these guys at all different stages of this process that you need to have on your team in order to execute. And if you have a smaller team, you need to at least have the skills in all these different areas. And when you have a great team, you still need a great process. So we use agile marketing here to manage our process, and we use Jira. I'd be happy if anybody's interested to learn more about that. Reach out to me after the webinar. But we put all of our stuff planned in our agile sprints in Jira. You can see this is all the tasks associated to one webinar that we have to execute. And this is super important for keeping us efficient and making sure that our content machine is rolling on all cylinders. Last point, if you thought that you're going to have overnight success like Twista here, content marketing success does not happen overnight. It takes time, so do not give up. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you found it helpful, and big thanks to Bright Talk for having me out. Like I said, I am available. Any questions you guys have, please reach out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and I'd be happy to follow up with you guys. And thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Check out my blog if you're interested in checking out any more free content on content or aligning digital marketing with the customer journey. Check that out, the URL below there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.